guest has been recognized as Educator of the Year, Emerging Business Leader, and a Pet Age Icon Awards honoree for her experience and long-term contributions to the pet industry. She recently was top in her class in an executive education women's leadership program at Yale University. Her insights have been featured in multiple publications, and she often shares her expertise speaking at conferences nationwide. She's the founder of Whole Pet Grooming Academy, which is an arts and sciences school specializing in providing training for professional pet stylists. She and her husband then created Come What May Racing, a thoroughbred racehorse syndicate operation based in Delaware. Please welcome Dara Forleo. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk because there's so many things that we have in common. Love of horses, love of businesses, love of entrepreneurs. I'm excited today. This is going to be a good one. So let's kick it off because I think this is one thing that really gets left by the wayside, and it's something that's so important that we all need to do. But for a lot of us, we want to focus on the fun stuff. And this is not always the fun stuff. So how important is a business plan in running your small business?
So honestly, I have probably too many, and they are important, but they're only important if you're flexible. You've got to have flexibility with it, and the business plans are your foundation. Once you start building on your foundation, then you're going to find that you're going to have a plan going in other directions. So intricate facets and little curves here and there, and making sure that if you have a hiccup, you got to have a secondary way or another thought of how am I going to work around this. I think that's why the flexibility is so important. I keep journals, I keep my notebooks, I keep all kinds of things. And, I think that for the businesses that I run, things change daily. And sometimes my plan changes daily based on what's happening in the moment. So they're great and you have a vision to work towards, but you got to have that flexibility, because if you're too narrow-minded about it, you might miss opportunities.
Well, and I think that that's one of like the greatest things about entrepreneurship, but also sometimes can be one of the most annoying things about entrepreneurship is that if you are not flexible, you're not going to progress. And whether that's the business plan or any other aspect of your business, that flexibility is huge. And I'm really glad that you brought up about your journals, because I think it's so cool to be able to look back at the things we were facing in the beginning of our businesses versus now, because I don't know about you, but there's so many times when I'm like, oh, I haven't done anything. I haven't made progress. Like, what am I doing? But if I had those journals to go back and look and see, like, okay, today my biggest hurdle is how do I get an EIN or whatever it could be, to be like, oh my gosh, that was so simple. And like, hopefully I'll be able to look back at today's issues and think the same thing 5 years from now to be like, oh, that wasn't even that big of a deal.
I can't believe I made it into such a big deal.
Yep. It was a big hairy monster and it really didn't need to be. Yeah, totally. Now, for you, are there any processes that you would recommend putting in place or documenting to like help your business run smoother, or, create that flexibility inside your business so that way we know things are going to come up?
Yeah.
How do we manage that? How do we plan for that?
Well, we've got a pretty in-depth, because being a school, we have students that have a catalog that's followed, syllabuses for each of our classes. So we do have a lot of processes, a lot of procedures, things that have to happen for students coming in, employees, our groomers that are on staff. Plus we have some booth renters. So there's quite a mix of us, and we've got to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So we're pretty stringent on our policies, our procedures, our daily planning and how the day is going to be prepped and run, depending on the number of dogs coming in, how many students are on the floor versus employees are on the floor. It's very detailed.
That is so great. And you created those just from being in this business for so long, right?
30 years.
That's incredible. So
Yeah.
you know the value of having those policies and procedures, so that way people aren't just running amok and it's, going every which direction.
Well, absolutely, because I made the mistakes of not having them, and the business was running in every which direction, and it was there. I don't even want to say it was controlled chaos. It was just absolute chaos. And seeing that and the drama that it created and the turmoil in everyone and myself, it was awful, awful. So yeah, to learn as you're growing, oh my gosh, I still take classes online. I still do business courses. I still working with coaches and advancing myself for the business.
No,
I will say one of the best things that happened was having a general manager who can take it and implement and execute everything that's been set up. And that has allowed me to finally not be in the business, but now I get to work on it. So since I've been working on it for the last year and a half, we've doubled in size.
And that allows your general manager, like if you didn't have those policies and procedures set up, your general manager would just be guessing or doing what they thought was right. But by you creating all those things, they have a handbook or a manual to be able to follow, which I think is huge for expectations, right? Because everybody does things differently.
And it doesn't matter what size. I was very detail oriented. I was very big into the policies and procedures starting for myself in a small business. But my weakness and some of the things that I know I'm not good at was when I had people coming in, here you go. I just expected that they would go, oh, okay, I'm going to follow all these. I'm going to do all these. So there was no accountability. I'm not good at that. My dogs run wild. So, there's no account. I'm like, okay, so as much as I like to think that I was a good manager, I was a terrible manager. Terrible. Because I was just like, oh, here you go. Okay, go have fun now. Because I expect people just to do their job. And I think that's finally learning that. And it's taken. I mean, I started in 2007 when I opened the business, and I was solo. And then I had employees, and then I sold the business and moved and opened another one, and then opened another one and sold those two to open a fourth one, which was $4,000, triple the size of what I'd ever worked in. And going from 2 employees to 15 was like, oh my God, no, you can't. So over the struggle over the last 3 years has been, I got to do this. I've really got to sit down and do it. And the best thing I did was do it with the manager. Her and I wrote them together. And it actually took her throwing me out of the shop before, because I was really bad at micromanaging. I wouldn't give it up. So it was like, she finally came and said, get out now. This is what I want you to do for me to make my job better. And we started doing that. We worked all of them. We put them, and now she's like, and things are like, oh.
That's so awesome.
Finally.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel like as entrepreneurs, this business is our baby. Like, you have to be careful who you give your baby to, but it really brings up a really good point about boundaries. Because what are some boundaries besides the ones that you mentioned? What are boundaries that we as business owners should put in place when running our business? Is there like top 3 that you're like, listen, after all these businesses that I have built and sold and all these things, these are the top ones that are huge for me?
Yep. I'm not friends with them.
Number one, everyone.
The biggest mistake that I made is that you're not friends with your employees. It's not going out to dinner. It's not doing social events. It's not inviting them to your house. You cannot be friends with, you can have good relationships with them, but you can't be friends with them.
I love that.
Everything is separated. And I keep them at an arm's length now. And you have to, because it's the only way you can continue. Because if something goes wrong, and there are times, oh, Lori, yep, you really messed up this time, but this is how, moving forward, we're going to fix this. Sometimes you can't bring that to your friends. And that could go with family. Working with family is hard too. So I would say, I don't think I could do that.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Because, when you're first starting out and you hire your first person, I mean, you're kind of in the trenches with them. And to make sure that you're like, nope, this has to be, this invisible wall between us is huge, because pretty soon those lines get blurred. And then that's when issues and hiccups start.
Mm-hmm. And that leads to number 2, which is their freedom. I don't need to know their social world. Where when business is done, when they clock out, they're done. I don't reach out unless it's a student problem, a customer problem, anything like that. But otherwise, her time is hers. Her family time is her family time. And I do not intervene or encroach in on that once she's off the clock.
That's awesome.
Weekends are hers, and a lot of people take advantage of that. So I think that's really important, is to set that. And you said 3, right?
Yeah. What's your third one?
Boundaries. Third one. Well, social media. I mean, I think those are really the big ones.
I was going to say social media too. I feel like that's a massive one.
Yeah, I don't have social media. I have my personal Facebook page, but then there's the professional page, and I don't allow people who I am not daily with on my personal page. If you want to talk to me, go to my social page. That's the professional one. That's LinkedIn. Contact me through LinkedIn. But I also myself personally try to, I get bad, you get stuck, and maybe you do also. I get holed up, and sometimes I feel like I'm like, okay, when you go to the casino and there's no clocks and you lose track of time, even though there's a clock on my computer screen and there's 2 of them, I still lose track of time. I got my phone here. You've got to have your own personal boundaries with your business, and not accept calls after a certain time, not return emails. I am starting to implement in my daily structure, because it was kind of really wonky, was, okay, I'm going to do emails in the morning, emails in the late afternoon. That's it. I'm not going to return emails except at those 2 times a day, because otherwise, when you have it on your phone, it's like, bing, I got to go do it. And then I lose focus on what I'm actually working on and taking away from that. So I'm trying to structure out my day better so that I'm not shifting all over. And I look and I'm like, I got 20 tabs open. How did I get 20 tabs open? And then I got 14 on the other screen. It's like, what am I doing? I try to keep it to whichever I'm working on and the 2 that I need to work on it. So business boundaries for yourself.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's important. And you know what? One thing that I always tell people too, as business owners, like, your reaction typically is like, oh, I'll just use my personal cell phone when I'm starting out because one, I don't want to pay for a business line. I don't have the funds to pay for a business line. I'll combine them. But when you do that, that's another instance that like completely blurs the line because people don't have boundaries with you.
Yeah.
So they will call you at all hours of the day and night because they have your personal cell phone. So I think for me, number one is definitely like get a separate phone number or a separate phone or whatever that looks like for you. So that way you can put that phone on do not disturb as soon as you clock out. So that way you can spend time with your family because just like we're allowing our employees to have that time away from work, we need that too. Yep. Because our gut reaction is to work 24 hours a day because I'm sure you're the same way as me. It doesn't feel like work. It's something that I'm passionate about. I love it. I always want to talk about it, but then it's like, no, you gotta reel that back, Jill. Like you gotta take some time for like things that aren't work, which leads me to my next question because this is something that I also am super passionate about, but it's about goal setting because we've talked about schedule blocking. We talked about boundaries. Another huge thing for us as entrepreneurs is setting goals. So when we're setting goals for our personal lives, do you think that we should be setting goals for our business as well?
Oh, I love setting goals.
I know, me too. We're kindred spirits in that way for sure.
I got my daily goals. I got my weekly goals. I got my monthly goals. I have a 1 month plan, 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, and a 12 month, and then a 3-year and a 5-year.
I love it.
And I write it down. I'm gonna go in with saying maybe this is a thing, but I write it down. I can't do things in my phone or on the computer with this. It is not real if it's virtual. It's real when you write it down. I've got notebooks. I got my journals and I do. So now I got my daily one that I just got involved with a couple weeks ago, which is helping me structure the day because my day wasn't structured and now it's becoming structured. And I like it. I like my routine and I get more stuff done.
Well, I think that's
so
important.
Nice.
Well, yeah, because you've got so much coming. Like I call them fires. There's so many fires that pop up throughout the day. It's like being able to look at your schedule. I'm a paper person too. I mean, I love tech gadgets. Don't get me wrong, but there's something to be said. There's something to be said about pen to paper. So that way, if you do get distracted with a fire, then you can come back to your paper and be like, oh yeah, I was doing this and jump right back into it.
Yep. And I keep them just to make sure I know if I missed something or I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 of them right here on my desk right now. And I always have a notepad in my purse. So if I have an idea or something, I write them down and then I bring it in because I find that if I'm doing menial work outside in the yard or I've been painting a lot and it's like, I don't listen to the music as much. I like to I think. And so it's like, oh, that's a great idea. I got to remember that and write it down.
I always keep one in my bathroom too, because I feel like in the morning when I'm like washing my face or brushing my teeth or just get out of the shower, it's like there's an idea that hits and it's like, oh, I got to write that down before I forget it because I'll get distracted by the dogs or, something that's going on. So I think having those notebooks definitely in your purse, strategically placed around your house, I think is huge because you never know when an idea is going to hit and you want to make sure you're writing it down.
And they say you should keep one at your bedside too.
Yeah.
So that, because after a night, your best ideas come in the morning. You're fresh, you're rejuvenated, unless you're not a big morning person. But I'm at 7:30, 6:30. I'm up fairly early, and I think that comes from the horses. But I work my best. That is my best time to work, and I get the most done between the hours of 7 and probably 2. I start slowing down about 2, losing my interest, and then it's like, all right, now I got to go do some physical work to let go. So.
Well, and I like the idea of keeping that notebook by your bedside so that way you don't get distracted by your phone. because I feel like as soon as I pick up my phone in the morning, it's like all bets are off. Like, but if I can write those ideas down and know that they're in a safe place, then I'm less likely to pick up my phone and get distracted by Instagram or emails or whatever the case may be. So making sure that those distractions are, you know, I'll check my email, but it won't be till later in the morning. So writing all those things down have made a huge difference for me. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I think there's so many people that are like, oh, I only can do it in one place. And I'm like, no, you can do it as you can have as many journals or planners or spots that you write things down as you want. It's just whatever makes sense to you.
Yep. And go through them, because sometimes you're going to, if like not all of them jive together, some are set for different things. So I got the horse parts, got the dogs. Well, keeping all the businesses separate.
I think there's something you said too, like I mentioned earlier. It's like, man, if I could have had those journals back in the very beginning and go back to those original ideas, there was probably some golden nuggets in there that I've missed because I didn't, I was switching from a digital tool to a digital tool, trying to find the right thing, where if I just had that journal where I wrote it down, I'd be like, I would know exactly where it was at. I'd be up on my shelf. I could just be like, you know what? I'm going to cruise through that, see if I can, jog my memory with some stuff. Oh my gosh, so good. Well, tell me, this is a question that I ask every single one of my podcast guests. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a small business owner? I know we've talked about amazing things today, but what's one thing that's really changed your business?
Documentation. Get everything in writing.
Amen to that.
And meaning not text messages, because unless you're going to screenshot and save them, but there's no carbon copy of that. So email, verbal does not work nearly as well unless you're writing it down and signing off on it. We've worked out that with students and employees, you do get a verbal warning, but it is documented and put into the file right away. Our files we are still dated and keep paper files, because if the state needs something, I can't go looking through my phone, scrolling and say, oh, see, it happened here on this date, because I can't find the text, or looking in the emails and trying to pull them back up. At least with the emails, I have separate files that save them. But documentation, document everything. Huge.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's super important. Now, if there is somebody who has listened to this podcast and was like, yes, girl, that is exactly what I need help with, I'm looking for, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that want to start a business. They don't know where to start, or they're in that startup phase, which is your passion, is coaching and consulting those businesses that are starting. What is the best way for people to reach out to you? Because they're like, these are the things that I'm struggling with. All that stuff that you mentioned previously is stuff that I need help with, the documentation, setting up all that stuff. Where's the best place for people to find you and reach out to you?
Well, you can reach me at the Academy anytime, but my email for my direct email is info@wholepetnh.com. You can reach me on my cell phone business. Do you want my cell number? It's 603-732-7796. If you text me late, I might not respond.
That's what we talked about, the boundaries, people. Boundaries. Check your time zones. Check your time zones before you send a text message at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Time, so.
No, and I'll be sure to link all that in the show notes too, so people find that if they're running or driving or something and they know that they want to talk to you about. I'll link that.
Yeah.
And I think there's so many different things that business startups struggle with. And I think it's one of those things where you've got to find a coach, you've got to find a consultant, because there are things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And so finding someone that can help you with that is so important, because those mistakes can be expensive. And if you can find someone to help you avoid them, why not?
Well, I was going to say too, we as growing and doing this and developing all of what we have, we've already made the mistakes. So
for sure,
if you can budget and put in for somebody to help and coach you, you're not going to make the mistakes that we learned from. So I think I wish I had known then what I know now, kind of a thing. But, I didn't think, oh, I should have called a business coach. But startup, I wasn't thinking and didn't plan for that. And so if you're starting out, you have to know where all your money's going.
For sure. Well, thank you so
And
much for
that's where
being
you
here.
come
Oh,
in.
go ahead.
No, that's where you come in.
Yeah.
Knowing where all the money is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to visit with us. Like I mentioned, if anyone is interested in working with you or finding out more information, I'll be sure to link that all in the show notes. Thank you again.
Perfect. Thank you.